Welcome, brave listeners, to another chilling episode of Midnight Delight, where nightmares come to play. Tonight we delve into the heart of darkness, exploring the shadowy corners of the Adirondacks, where legends of giant menacing bat-like creatures haunt the dense forests and abandoned mansions. Gather round, turn down the lights, prepare to be gripped by fear as we unravel tales of terror and survival against these monstrous beings. Remember, the line between reality and nightmare is often thinner than we imagine. Are you ready to cross it? I've always been an outdoor enthusiast, often spending my weekends hiking and camping in remote areas. It was a crisp autumn evening when my friend Tom and I decided to explore the dense forests of Appalachia, seeking a break from our hectic lives. We set up a camp near a secluded lake, surrounded by towering trees that seemed to touch the sky. As night fell, the forest became eerily quiet. We sat by the campfire, sharing stories, sipping on hot cocoa, completely unaware of the terror that awaited us. Around midnight, we decided to turn in for the night. I crawled into my sleeping bag, the warmth and comfort quickly lulling me to sleep. Sometime later, I was jolted awake by a chilling scream that echoed through the forest. My heart raced as I tried to make sense of what I had heard. It was unlike any animal sound I had ever encountered. I scrambled out of my tent, flashlight in hand, and found Tom already standing outside, his face pale with fear. "Did you hear that?" he whispered, his voice trembling. I nodded, too stunned to speak. We stood in silence, straining to hear any signs of movement. Suddenly, a loud rustling came from the treetops, followed by an intense gust of wind that nearly knocked us off our feet. I aimed my flashlight upwards, and that's when we saw it. A massive bat-like creature with wings spanning at least 10 feet. Its eyes glowed an eerie red, and its body was covered in a dark, leathery skin. It hovered above us for a moment before letting out a bone-chilling screech and diving towards us. I barely had time to react as the creature swooped down, its claws extended. Tom and I dove in opposite directions, narrowly avoiding its grasp. The creature circled back, its eyes locked onto us with a predatory intensity. "Run!" I shouted, and we took off into the forest, our flashlights bouncing wildly as we navigate the dark, uneven terrain. The creature was relentless, its powerful wings cutting through the air with a deafening roar. I could hear its screeches getting closer, and my heart pounded in my chest. Branches whipped against my face, and my lungs burned with exertion, but I couldn't afford to slow down. Tom was right beside me, his breath coming in ragged gasps. We stumbled upon a small clearing, and for a moment, I thought we had lost it. But then, the creature burst through the trees, its eyes glowing with fury. It swooped down again, and this time, I felt its claws graze my shoulder. I cried out in pain, nearly losing my footing. Tom grabbed my arm, pulling me forward, and we continued running. Ahead of us, I spotted a rocky outcrop that looked like it might provide some cover. "There!" I shouted, pointing towards it. We sprinted towards the rocks, the creature hot on our heels. Just as we reached the outcrop, the creature let out another screech and dove at us once more. We threw ourselves behind the rocks, pressing our backs against the cold stone. The creature circled above, its screeches echoing through the night. I could see its shadow passing over us, its wings creating powerful gusts of wind that whipped the leaves into a fury. For what felt like an eternity, we remained hidden, barely daring to breathe. The creature's screeches grew more distant, and eventually, the forest fell silent once more. We waited, hearts pounding, afraid to move. Finally, after what seemed like hours, we cautiously emerged from our hiding place. Tom's face was pale, his eyes wide with fear. "We need to get out of here," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, still too shaken to speak. We made our way back to our campsite as quickly as possible, constantly looking over our shoulders. When we reached the campsite, we hastily packed our gear, not wanting to spend another moment in those cursed woods. As we quickly drove away, both me and Tom couldn't stop looking behind us, hoping that that thing isn't following us. I don't know what that was, and I really don't care. I'm just glad we made it out alive, and we will never go camping again. It was the last weekend before school started, and my friends and I wanted to do something memorable. There were 5 of us: Mike, the fearless leader; Jenny, the adventurous spirit; Tom, the jokester; Lisa, the skeptic; and me, Alex, the one who always went along with the crazy plans. This time, Mike had a wild idea. We were going to explore the old abandoned mansion at the edge of town. The mansion was legendary for all the wrong reasons. Decades ago, it was the site of a mysterious disappearance. A family of 4 had vanished without a trace, and the place had been abandoned ever since. Some said it was haunted, others claimed it was a curse, but Mike, always the thrill seeker, convinced us it would be the perfect spot for a night of ghost hunting. Armed with flashlights, a couple of video cameras, and a backpack full of snacks, we set out just as the sun was setting. The mansion loomed over us, its dark windows like empty eye sockets, and the front door creaked ominously as we pushed it open. Inside, the air was thick with dust, and every step we took echoed through the empty halls. We split up to cover more ground, each group armed with a flashlight and a camera. I was with Jenny and Lisa, while Mike and Tom took the other side of the mansion. As we wandered through the dark corridors, Jenny and I tried to lighten the mood with jokes, but Lisa remained quiet, her eyes darting around nervously. "Guys, this place gives me the creeps," Lisa whispered as we entered what appeared to be a grand ballroom. The ceiling was high, and the moonlight streamed through the broken windows, casting eerie shadows on the floor. "Relax, it's just an old house," Jenny replied, though I could hear the slight tremor in her voice. We moved cautiously, our flashlights sweeping over the dusty furniture and peeling wallpaper. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the other side of the mansion, followed by Mike's voice shouting, "Guys, come here, you need to see this." We hurried through the dark hallways, our hearts pounding. When we reached Mike and Tom, they were standing in front of a large, ornate mirror that seemed completely out of place in the dilapidated mansion. The glass was cracked, but it reflected something strange: a pair of glowing red eyes. "It's just a trick of the light," Lisa insisted. Her voice betrayed her fear. Tom, always the prankster, reached out to touch the mirror, but before his hand could make contact, the eyes blinked and the mirror shattered, sending shards of glass flying. We screamed and stumbled back, but it was too late. From the broken mirror emerged a massive, bat-like creature, its wings stretching nearly the width of the hallway. It screeched, the sound piercing our ears, and lunged at us. We scattered, each of us running in different directions. I found myself sprinting down a narrow corridor, Jenny right behind me. We could hear the creature's wings flapping, getting closer. We burst into a room and slammed the door shut, barricading it with an old dresser. The creature rammed into the door, its claws scratching at the wood. "Alex, what the hell is that thing?" Jenny gasped, her back against the dresser. "I don't know, but we need to find the others and get out of here," I replied, my voice shaking. We quickly looked around the room and found a small window. It was a tight squeeze, but we managed to crawl through it and drop down into a dark, musty basement. The basement was filled with old furniture and covered in cobwebs. We heard distant screams and realized the others were still upstairs, likely being chased by more of these creatures. "We need to get back up there," Jenny said, and we found a set of stairs and cautiously made our way back to the ground floor. As we emerged, we saw Mike and Lisa running towards us, their faces pale with fear. "There are more of them," Mike shouted. "We need to get out of here." Just then, Tom burst into the hallway, a creature hot on his heels. "Run!" he screamed. But before we could move, the creature tackled him, dragging him into the darkness. His screams echoed through the mansion, and we stood frozen, horror-stricken. "We can't leave him," Lisa cried, but Mike pulled her back. "We have to, or we'll all end up like him," he insisted. With no other choice, we ran towards the front door, hoping to escape the nightmare. As we reached the front entrance, the door slammed shut on its own and the air grew cold. We turned to see the creatures emerging from the shadows, their red eyes glowing menacingly. They surrounded us, cutting off any chance of escape. "Guys, this isn't real," I said suddenly, the pieces clicking together in my mind. "This whole place, it's like a giant illusion." "What are you talking about?" Jenny asked, panic in her voice. "Think about it. The mirror, the creatures, it's all designed to scare us, but it's not real. We need to stop believing in it," I explained, trying to stay calm. "That's insane," Mike snapped, but I could see a flicker of hope in his eyes. "Just trust me," I pleaded. "Close your eyes and think about something that makes you feel safe. Don't give in to the fear." Reluctantly, we all closed our eyes, focusing on happy memories and trying to block out the sounds of the creatures. The air around us seemed to shimmer, and I could feel the fear loosening its grip. When we opened our eyes, the creatures were gone, and the mansion looked different, less menacing, more like an old, abandoned house. We cautiously made our way to the front door, and this time it opened easily. Outside, the night air felt fresh and welcoming. We stumbled down the front steps, grateful to be alive. As we reached the safety of the street, we heard a faint voice calling out behind us. "Wait, you can't leave yet." It was Tom. He emerged from the mansion, looking disoriented but unharmed. "I don't know what happened, but I'm okay," he said, and we embraced him, relieved beyond words. As we walked away from the mansion, the sky began to lighten with the first hints of dawn. We vowed never to speak of that night again, each of us silently wondering if the mansion's horrors were truly behind us. Years later, I sometimes wonder if it was all a trick of our minds or if the mansion held a darker secret. But one thing is certain, I will never set foot in that cursed place again. It all started on a late summer evening when my girlfriend Sarah and I decided to take a weekend trip to a remote cabin in the woods. Nestled deep in the heart of the Adirondacks, the cabin promised a peaceful getaway from our everyday lives. Little did we know our serene escape would soon turn into a nightmare. The drive to the cabin was uneventful, and we arrived just before sunset. The cabin was quaint, surrounded by dense forest with a small clearing that allowed a breathtaking view of the night sky. We spent the first evening stargazing, enjoying the tranquil sounds of nature. As darkness enveloped the forest, we retreated inside, lit a fire, and settled in for the night. Around midnight, Sarah and I were startled awake by a strange noise outside. It sounded like the flapping of enormous wings, accompanied by a low growl. I brushed it off as a bear or some other forest creature, but Sarah was visibly shaken. "Maybe we should check it out," she suggested, her voice trembling. Reluctantly, I grabbed a flashlight and headed towards the window. As I peered into the darkness, my breath caught in my throat. There, perched on a tree branch, not far from the cabin, was a massive, bat-like creature. Its eyes glowed a sinister red, and its wings were folded against its body, but even in the dim light, I could see its sheer size, at least 12 feet from wingtip to wingtip. Before I could react, the creature let out a blood-curdling screech and launched itself towards the cabin. I stumbled back, grabbing Sarah's arm. "We need to get out of here now," I yelled. We dashed to the door, but the creature was faster. It slammed into the side of the cabin, shaking the entire structure. We bolted out the back door. The flashlight's beam was all we had as we sprinted through the forest. The creature was right behind us, its screeches piercing the night air. I could hear the flapping of its wings growing louder, closer. My heart pounded in my chest, adrenaline propelling me forward. We stumbled through the underbrush, branches scratching at our faces and arms. Sarah tripped and fell, but I quickly pulled her to her feet. "Come on, we have to keep moving," I urged. The creature's eyes glowed menacingly in the darkness, and I knew it wouldn't stop until it had us. Ahead, I spied a narrow cave entrance, barely visible in the darkness. "There, the cave," I pointed, and we made a beeline for it. We squeezed inside just as the creature swooped down, its claws scraping against the rocks. The cave was small, but it offered temporary refuge. Inside, we huddled together, our breaths ragged and shallow. The creature's screeches echoed outside, but it couldn't fit through the narrow entrance. We could hear it flapping around, frustrated and enraged. For what felt like hours, we remained hidden, afraid to make a sound. Eventually, the forest fell silent, and the creature seemed to retreat. We waited a while longer, ensuring it was truly gone before cautiously emerging from the cave. The first light of dawn filtered through the trees, casting an eerie glow over the forest. We made our way back to the cabin, constantly looking over our shoulders, fearing the creature's return. When we finally reached the cabin, we found it in shambles. The creature had torn through the walls and scattered our belongings. We quickly gathered what we could and fled, vowing never to return again. Thank you for joining us on this spine-tingling journey through the shadowy forests of the Adirondacks. The stories you've heard tonight serve as a chilling reminder of the unknown horrors that may lurk just beyond the edges of our perception. As you lay down to sleep, remember the glowing red eyes and the terrifying screeches of the giant bat creatures. And if you ever find yourself in a dark forest or an old abandoned mansion, keep an eye on the shadows. Until next time, sleep tight and don't let the nightmares bite. This is Midnight Delight, where nightmares come to play.